Hello, everyone, and welcome to the VZWBuzz recap. Today we speak about mobile kids and all of the technology, apps, social platforms that our children are on and how to perhaps keep up with them or perhaps find a couple of new ways in which we can keep them safe and teach them some good behaviors and foster some creativity as well. I'm so thrilled to have Sara Hawkins today join us. She is in Phoenix, Arizona. And how are you doing, Sara?
I'm fantastic. How are you today?
Doing great. Thank you. I
I
know
see
that,
sun.
what'd you say?
I said I see sun in the back by you, and it's overcast by us. So I think I'm in New York.
Yeah, it's been a beautiful fall day actually here in New York, and we're kind of excited because we know the winter is coming, although not to you. So we will be jealous of you in a couple of months, I'm sure. Today we're going to give away two great prizes. I wanted to make sure that you all knew these right from the start. Today's first prize will be this prepaid smartphone. It is going to come to you with a $45 gift card as well, so you can activate it. This is actually a great choice for a first device for a child. It is not expensive, and you can just prepay it. And as he or she develops good behaviors and takes good care of it, you can keep adding to it and really make sure that they prove to you that they're very responsible and perhaps earn another phone in a couple of years' time. And our second prize is, I'm very, very excited about this because many of you have used Jetpack before. And this device allows you to have your own personal Wi-Fi everywhere you go. You activate this device on your Verizon plan, and you will be able to power devices, your computers, your kids' computers, anywhere you go. So these are great also to travel with. And we're going to give away these two. What we want you to tell us on the chat on Twitter is what were the tips that you found most useful, both from the chat that Robin and the team just hosted, but also from what we may be able to share with you today. Okay, so these are the prizes, and I'm actually thrilled to be doing this live chat with Marty and Misty here on location. I'm learning a lot about their production capabilities. They are incredible, and if you're considering doing any kind of video work for your company or your blog or your business, you got to think of these guys. So I'm going to start by asking Sara a couple of questions. Sara, what is the age of your children?
I have a daughter, and she's 11, almost 12.
Mm-hmm. So you're in the thick of it. You're
I'm I'm in full-on tween mode.
yeah. What are some of the things you would say are the most important things parents can do in this particular age group that your daughter's in?
I think the most important is to be aware what they put on their technology and what they're downloading, because they will download anything. They don't vet anything other than the fact that their friend says, do you have this? So I think that's a really big one, is to vet what they have on their technology, and then to talk to them about it. And if you have to delete it, have a reason why and explain it to them, and not just because I said so type of reasoning, but why it's not for them, whether it's not age appropriate,
Mm-hmm.
whether there might be some privacy issues and settings that they didn't have. I think another thing is on those things, apps that you allow them to have, to check the settings frequently, because you may not want location settings on something, but they may turn them on, sometimes not purposefully. I mean, a lot of young kids change things not understanding the implications of what they're changing.
Mm-hmm. I think that is so important. I am so glad that you actually bring this to the forefront. Is know what's on your child's device is really, really important for all kinds of reasons, as Sara just pointed out, but also even just malware and viruses and all of the other things that Many of these apps and or games can bring along with them, as well as in-app purchases, which we know has been a huge problem both on iTunes as well as on the Apple Play Store. And so as tip one of this recap, I would love to just summarize what Sarah just said is know what's on your child's device. Very, very important. Sarah, when parents come to you and say, what is the right age for my child to have a cell phone? What is, it's to me the number one question people ask. I'm assuming you've been asked this too. What is the advice that you would give someone so they can think about that in the future?
My advice is kind of that patented, it depends. A lot of it depends on where you are. I have friends that live in New York City, and their kids have had devices since they were 5 or 6 years old because their lifestyle has a lot of independence for their children in their neighborhood. You know, for me in the Phoenix area, I started her, she recently got it mainly because of an independence issue with taking pictures because I was tired of having all of her weird pictures on my phone.
Yeah.
um, but we gave her a phone that was Wi-Fi only, so it didn't have a calling feature type of setup. I still have friends who their kids are who are 13 and 14 and in middle school, and their kids do not have a dedicated cell phone because they just don't feel that their kids are anywhere long enough without them or another responsible adult that they need to have their own cell phone. So I think it depends on your lifestyle a lot. I mean, it's kind of that ties back into, you know, Verizon is a lot about your lifestyle, and they talk a lot about lifestyle, and that there isn't just one solution.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be starting your kid on a tablet because they need it for school, but then limiting it at home, or giving them, you know, a mobile phone, a not as smart smartphone, and limiting accessibility to apps and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But only you know what's best for your kids. I mean, it's hard to say that there's a one size fits all for kids because there really isn't a one size fits all for adults.
Yeah, I find that I was just last night is a great opportunity for me to speak at a local elementary school here. We had over 200 parents show up. I think it was promoted slightly differently because they all showed up and they don't always show up. And one of the, you know, it's the question that comes up, when is the right time, particularly when they're in elementary school. And I've often said, here's a couple reasons why you shouldn't do it. Number one, if it's a gift, if it's a privilege, I think that using a smartphone as a toy perhaps is probably the wrong way to go. So don't give in because you feel there's so much pressure and everyone has one. I think that kids that are in that age group, say 4th or 5th grade, you know, pretty much understand a little bit better that these devices break, that they're delicate. And so my advice is to really wait as long as possible. And if your child's going to be on his or her own for any part of the day, you may want to consider a device that is used just for those days or for that reason, and then foster really good behavior before you hand over an expensive iPhone or a Samsung device or a Windows device. It's one of those things that parents tend to ponder because the pressure, the social pressure, is on to jump on that bandwagon. But really hold off as much as possible and make the decision based on what your child needs. And right at that moment, sit down with your child and ask him or her to draft an agreement of how the device will be used. What is the right time to use the device? Make sure your child does not use the device overnight or sleeps with it. It is so important. I find that is my number one rule, that even to this day, 15-year-old complains and mutters about it, but I pick up those phones before the night lights are out and they're put away. So what about your daughter's current device? Then you said you have a Wi-Fi only phone. How does that work? What is that like?
She did before. I had taken the SIM card out of a device, so it didn't have a SIM card. So she couldn't use it for calling or texting. I figured she didn't really have a need for that. Although I know that there are Wi-Fi related texting apps, but for the most part, general texting she didn't need it for. So she has a Droid Ultra now, and previously she had one of my old iPhones, and she's always had, since probably she was probably about 5 or 6, some type of reading device, so like a Kindle or a Nook type of situation. And that was because of reading books. If you want to encourage your kids to read, a lot of people use the mobile device, but you don't have to have a smartphone for it. There are reading dedicated devices. So you give them that. And because she showed that she was able to handle that, we upgraded it to a Kindle Fire and then to a Nexus 7. And now, I've got the iPhone 6, we've got, a handful of different smartphones. And the funny thing is when we switched her phone to a plan so that she had to talk and text with us, she still kept using it on Wi-Fi, and it wasn't until she'd had it for a couple weeks and she went to update something on one of her games, and it worked. And so she's like,
she discovered
she
data.
just assumed she was on Wi-Fi still. And so she still doesn't, she knows that it works. It works all the time. That's all she knows.
Yeah, makes sense. When they discover data, God help you. The other question that comes up a lot is this question on screen time, because we used to say, one good thing you need to do is actually limit your screen time. What is your comment on those rules?
I think you have to know what their screen time situation is at school before you can really make that decision. In her class, she's got 90% of her time they do a lot of screen time. I don't know if it's 90% of the time, but they all have their own computers. They all have their own tablets. They take technology class. They interact with their teacher, and they interact with people outside the school through technology. And so she has a lot of technology time there. So when she comes home, we try to limit it. The problem is then she has to do homework, and everything is so technology driven. She doesn't write a paper. She still has to type it and turn it in online. So
depends on the school.
It depends.
I
There are kids who don't get technology in school, and their only opportunity is at home. And I think that that's a great learning opportunity as well. And so I'm kind of the opposite in that I'm, looking for those opportunities where she can be off technology.
Yeah.
Because too much technology related to learning and education causes those times when you have downtime to spend on things that you probably shouldn't be on.
Right. One of the things that we discussed last night amongst parents is, we all know what's good for us, but the question is how to get us to do it, right? It's the same thing with screen time. If you can explain to your child that some of that screen time is like candy and it has to be limited versus the screen time that's devoted for school, then that's an analogy that they may be able to understand and be able to distinguish and say how much candy screen time can you have today is limited to the amount of work that you actually have to do for school. And so that may be a tool that you can use to help your child understand why you're limiting certain types of screen time, like games, like watching shows, or even just Facebook and other tools. Tell me about your favorite apps for parenting, organizing, playing, connecting. What would you say are your top 3?
That's really hard because, I think it's probably the same ones that most people have, texting, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But when it comes to family stuff, my favorite family one it's called Life 360, and it's a family. It's called a family communication app. And the one thing I really like about it is that it has in-app texting functions, so you can text a group. So rather than relying on group texting, I know that trying to explain that to my daughter would be a little bit more challenging, but as to when she should and shouldn't use it. But she knows that she can talk to and text with my husband, me, her aunt, and we're all in a group together, so she can communicate with us in the group and not feel that, she's somewhere with her friends, they're saying, "Oh, you're texting mommy," or something like that. So
Yeah.
there's an independence there. It has a panic feature, so if she's ever somewhere, it was a big thing with me, is she's ever somewhere without me,
Mm-hmm.
and needs to get a hold of me, that there be some way for her to do that. And you know, in some ways it's kind of Big Brotherish because it checks her in different places. So I know if she's at her friend's house that they're still there, or if
Yeah.
they're supposed to be going to the movie, or when they're coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for her, it's not that big of a deal. She's only 11, but as she gets older, and for teens and stuff, I think that it could be a really great app um, for teens and parents, so that teens don't have to feel like they're constantly having to text mom and dad, or when they get somewhere to call.
Yeah.
That if they're supposed to be at their friend's house, then you look at the app and it shows them there. And yeah, they can leave the phone at their friend's house and go somewhere else, but they don't go anywhere without their phone. And so you see,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that they left. And if it's an issue with them being a new driver, or maybe
Yeah.
not telling you some of the in-between steps of where they started and where they ended up. I think it's kind of a nice way to, be safe, and have a family communication. So it's Life 360.
Yeah, I think that's you've highlighted features of it that I wasn't aware it had, like the panic button, so useful, and also gives them peace of mind if they know that they can access it. So what we're going to do also, Sarah, is show people a little bit of how to do the restrictions, or we're going to do that later. Okay, we're going to do that later. We're going to give you guys a little bit of a short clip after today, maybe on Monday or Tuesday, about how to do your settings, your restriction settings, if your child has an iPhone or has a Windows phone, or if you have an Android device. I know Verizon has a really great tool called Family Base that I encourage you to look at and check it out. And it also gives you some filters and gives you the ability to track texting volume, not actual texts, but volume. And it's a great conversation to have with your child if you think that they're spending 24 hours a day texting. I will say, though, that one of my favorite apps on my phone is indeed the texting app with my daughter, because there have been things that we can share with each other that probably would be harder to discuss face to face sometimes, or even just express some feelings or talk briefly about, just before a test. I find that ability to connect right in crucial moments when we're not physically together to be a really wonderful parenting tool. And so I encourage you all, if you haven't already, is to establish that bond also on that platform. And so you can always encourage them, but also be there in moments where you, again, might not be physically able to be where they actually are, where they might need you. And this goes all the way through the teen years. So if you have little ones or even older ones, I say the sooner you start with that connection and building that relationship in that platform, the longer lasting it will be. So we're going to pick some of the first couple of winners for today based on what you all learned. And so feel free to post. We're going to see a couple more posts before we actually pick, although we do have the first winner. And I was just receiving that here on Skype. So we're going to give the prepaid phone to Just Phalon, Phalon. Congratulations. So you're going to take this guy and you'll have a $45 gift card, and you'll be able to activate it. And if you don't yet have Verizon service, this actually will give you a really good taste of how fast and reliable Verizon is in most areas of the country. I was not that it is reliable only in some areas, but its coverage is widest across the U.S., and so you'll probably find that there's good service if you're on Verizon in many different places. And also, again, the gift card so that you can activate it and give it a test drive. So congratulations, and we're going to name our second winner in just a couple minutes. And Sarah, what are some of your best parting thoughts? If you are in front of a group of 200 parents at a PTA meeting at 7 p.m. at night next week, what would you say is the one parting thought you want to leave them with in order to keep their kids thriving and safe in this new digital world?
I think my parting thought would be to be aware of what your child is doing, whether it's on a mobile phone or a tablet or even online, that there are opportunities for other people. I mean, no matter how much we trust our kids, the fact is that there are other people that are communicating with them as well. And some kids are just more vulnerable than others. And like you said, with texting, that's a great way to communicate when you don't have an opportunity to have a specific discussion face-to-face. They may be willing to share it with you on text. But just be aware what's on there. They may not know what they're downloading. They just want to download it because it's the popular thing to download. They may not understand what some of the privacy issues are with related to geolocation and, sharing out a location that's your home or their school. And there are people out there that are, trying to gain access to young men and women, young boys and girls, through technology, and they pose as other kids, and they try to gain trust. And they may not do anything, they may, but the fact is that if you know who your child is communicating with, even on in-app communications, it's a great way to give them the independence and allow them to develop this in a very healthy way. And you can't you'd never hand them a car and say, have a great time, go wherever you want. And yet we do that with mobile technology. And we need to kind of take a step back and think of mobile technology the same way we think of as maybe vehicles, and train them and give them the training and give them the tools so that not only are they safe, but the fact is when you get in a car, you can be as safe as you possibly can be, but there are other people who impact your safety. And that's kind of the parting shot, so to speak.
Parting shot.
That you can teach your kids about how to be safe, but you also have to teach them how to be safe given other people impacting them.
Yeah, such a good point. Another analogy of that is this, you can put a fence around the pool, but the safest child is the child that knows how to swim. And you have to be involved. Last night, one of the moms says, so I don't do any of that Twitter, Facebook stuff, but my child's on Instagram and a couple others. Do I need to be on? And I said, yes. I didn't really think I had to explain anything else. It's so important that you try to get into some of those tools that your children are into and understand and ask them, as Robin's World pointed out, Robin Wright on the chat today, ask them to show you how they work. I asked my daughter to show me Snapchat. And I know Tommy Clifford in our team is a big Snapchatter with his kids. I keep getting Snapchats from him, and I didn't know quite how to see them or open them or do anything with them. But once Sammy showed me how to do it, it was great fun. And I've been Snapchatting with a bunch of people ever since. I'm sure that now that I'm on it, it'll be less cool for most people to be on. And so thank you so very much, Sarah. It's been invaluable. I am so grateful to Marty and Misty for being here today with me and helping walk through our setup on this live recap. And our final winner is going to be Shadow 62310. And I am so grateful for all the things that you posted, that you learned today. And today you are going to take this awesome jetpack device. And trust me, once people know that you have this, everywhere you go, they're going to beg you to give them Wi-Fi. And you'll be the most popular person in your group of friends, or certainly in your family. And so congratulations. Next week is one of our most popular chats. It's about photography and all the amazing things we can do with mobile photography, some great apps for editing, for capturing, for sharing. So don't forget to join us next week, Friday at the same time and the same place. And thanks everyone, and thank you all for joining today's chat and recap.